where we are trying to build community and exchange knowledge and experience building tech for the fitness industry. Organized by Eric, we are a company that helps entrepreneurs build technology, build applications for the fitness industry, powered by artificial intelligence. And it's my pleasure to welcome our special guest today. It's somebody who has amazing experience and a lot of knowledge about the fitness industry, being there for ages. Amazing expert, David Bluman. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
You actually did such a great job for me, but thank you. Yes, my career started back in 1988. So just to give you an idea of the amount of time I've been involved in the fitness industry, where I started as what was a floor trainer then. There was no personal training, and it was at a multidiscipline facility with racquetball and workouts and basketball and all kinds of stuff. Eventually moving into the personal training space and then becoming an educator in the industry over the last 20 years or so. I've had a great opportunity to interact with some of the best instructors in the world, to teach with them, to learn from them, and to move into several different spaces in consulting. Mainly my focus is in the education side of the industry, mostly continuing education for those that are already certified professionals.
Great. Sounds like a long-lasting, successful career. So, we want to pick your brains today about a couple of topics that I think that all of us here want to know, want to have some answers. So, obviously, the industry is in a particular stage at the moment where it was hit by the pandemic last year, and now things are slowly getting back to normal in terms of all society, industry. So, it's super interesting to see where this industry is going. So the pandemic, was it like an accident and now everything is getting back to normal, like pre-COVID times? Or is this, did it cause a change that's going to stay with us and become a new normal?
Right. And I think the idea is whatever you're doing in the industry is you have to position yourself for the changes. And the pandemic actually forced changes on us, and it's really taken its toll. And I have some stats. I'm not a big stat guy because they get boring, but just in the United States alone, we lost 1.4 million jobs in the fitness industry. Okay, 44% of the jobs in the industry disappeared. 20.4 billion in lost revenue through December of 2020. That's 58% decline from 2019. 17% of clubs closed permanently. And small gyms and fitness studios are not really expected to survive through 2021 unless they make some drastic changes. And it's really staggering. And we've seen that shift now. We got forced into this virtual online and adopting technology. From the education industry, we've made tremendous changes. And they were already taking place with online schooling, and other integrations of how people were learning. But from the fitness space, we kind of, everybody's been in that digital technology where it's been like what Fit TV used to be, right? You just watch and follow along, and that had to change during the pandemic. For those that have survived and adapted, and what they call the pivot, and I like to think more of a pivot as a shift, because I think this is going to continue. And even though we're getting back to what is considered normal, I don't think there is such a thing as normal. And with that much space left in the industry, and that many people out of work, they need to find a new way to take their profession and their passion and move forward with it.
Okay, so are you able to walk us through some of the changes that you think are going to stay with us?
Well, I'll start with one of the projects I'm working on. It was Autism Fitness, right? It was a 2-day live certification. We had a very small digital footprint out of the normal, social media channels, website, and e-commerce integrations, right? And a database that we had a place for a listing for our professionals who got certified. Well, we were faced with not being able to travel the globe because Eric Chesson, who is the founder of that and is the main instructor, was traveling to Singapore, Australia, England, Ireland, Canada, and beyond, as well as so we had 16 to 20 events that were live events that were planned around the globe prior to the pandemic.
And if I may ask, so were the training, was the training provided during those, physical sessions around those?
Yes, it was a 2-day in live workshop. And like I said, we had a very small digital footprint. We did use a learning management system to house our workbook and materials, and to administer the exams beyond the 2-day live workshop. But for the most part, it was traditional. He showed up. Everybody had a workbook. They took notes. They participated for 2 days. They went back and took their test, and then continued on. And we had no opportunity to do that once everything went into shutdown globally. So we ended up first doing live Zoom calls with the material for the lecture portion of the course. And then from there, we shifted it into now actually being able to do a virtual live practical where Eric will set up remotely, and we'll have teams of people who are registered join us and actually be able to do the physical activities and learn the programming. And that wasn't something we ever considered early on. We knew we were adopting having a learning management system and being able to deliver materials and information. But then we turned it into a fully digital, interactive online course that now you can take on demand. And then once you get through the on-demand version of it, you can take the practical version of it virtually as well. And so we've built more of it, and we were already kind of a hybrid learning model, and now we're a much more expanded hybrid learning model.
I see. But now, the borders are opening up. Your partner, he can start traveling again. Does it mean that he's not willing, that you've adapted and you're not gonna be doing as many offline courses as in the past?
We're not going to be doing as many. We're definitely going to be try to do more. But what ended up happening is we shifted the model into a 1-day practical versus a 2-day interactive lecture and practical. So now what we're doing is, as we're opening up, we are setting up some locations. But what we ended up doing is turning this to online. We did not lose one student that was pre-registered for the entire year. And so now we're building a little more of that hybrid model in where he will be going and saying, hey, I'm going to do a day here, but it's also still dependent, right? Think about this right now. South America is a hotspot. India, those areas are hotspots. People are still limited in traveling. And now with the summer coming back, we're seeing a rise in the cost of flights. So this also makes it cost effective for anyone on the globe to be able to take this course. But yes, I mean, there's nothing that takes the place of in-person learning and having that interaction. But I still think people are still a little bit afraid of gathering in groups. So we're not seeing the numbers for the live workshops that we are seeing on the online platform and that kind of interactivity.
Okay, so I think from that point, you get a very specialized, very niche content for training content for the participants. So maybe because your audience is spread around the globe, and you have this unique content, you can cater this market remotely through online channels, and you can do it efficiently because there are no costs for travel. And also the good thing is that pandemic made it for people acceptable and normal that they attend such classes online. So maybe it was gonna boost such businesses as yours.
Yes, and with the shutdowns that we've had and the loss of facilities, some of the facilities we were actually booked in no longer exist. So we don't actually have the physical locations in the cities and places that we had originally done that. But one of the really interesting things that we found was that this actually enhanced people's interactivity and their learning of the material. And like we said, from a business standpoint, it reduced our expenses outside of shifting it to technology. and marketing just a little bit different. And like I said, it made it more accessible to more places. So from a business standpoint and a structure, it actually enhanced what we were doing, and we actually grew during this time rather than faded into obscurity.
Absolutely. And what kind of changes do you think that the gym operators face at the moment? And what are the changes that you think are going to stay?
Well, I think what's happening is that there's a mix of people who want to train in a facility, but also want to have that on-demand learning, personalized experience in their home. And now that they've gotten adjusted to that, and now it was, in some cases it was not by choice, obviously. They were probably resistant to that at first, but now I think that they're far more open to having the opportunity to do both. It's on their terms, it's on their schedule, and as we see more and more technology like AI and the very large algorithms and behavioral algorithms, we're able to see and interact with people on their schedule. We're able to interact with their likes, their dislikes, the type of workouts they want to do, the type of workouts that they have access to. One of the other projects I work on is a martial arts school. My mentor and teacher has survived through this, and he is not a very technological person. He was very, very, like, even just working on his website was kind of a headache when we had to write content. And he was able to shift to doing live virtual classes to maintain his student base and to continue beyond that. So we saw a shift with that, where now you actually have what would be live in your studio or live in your classroom, and you still have a virtual access. And one of the things we're working on with him is, now that things are opening up and more people are coming back to train in the school, he's also making it available for people to have access to the class and do the class during their normal class times in a virtual capacity. Mm-hmm. So now he's got more access to more students and more opportunities for people to either come to the school and or comfortably still train and not lose the progress that they've made in their martial arts training.
It's very interesting. And I also think that that there are those two words that haven't maybe worked so closely together before, where you would have gym operators. They would be good at building facilities, equipment, hiring personal trainers on the spot, and then you have the digital aspect of the industry with online classes, online content, and now you're saying that the business is going to thrive is actually a combination of those two models, but is the industry prepared to make this shift? What I mean is, are the physical players really well positioned to bring on tech and become more tech savvy, and also at the same time the digital players? Do you think that they are well positioned to open their own studios?
I think somebody new coming in right now who has kind of survived this is going to be in a much better position. Because again, the consumers are going to decide how and when they want to work out, and they want to have more options. And like I said, integrating classes, having opportunities to, and as you know, we're working with Neoteric in developing a personal training application that's going to be very, very personalized. And I'm not going to get too far into it because we're still in early development with you guys, but where it really is personalized, where it really is like having the personal trainer in your pocket, and facilities that see this and are aware of this are adapting their CRMs, right? Their customer retention manager systems, right? Their check-in systems. They're updating their bandwidth, their internet, integrating people into the classroom with video, and giving them more options. Do I think that the industry is ready for that? No, because what we saw was a huge decline in big box gyms who were stuck in very old models and were stuck in very old ways of doing business. And many of them have gone bankrupt and disappeared. And we're kind of back into a trend that was happening about 15 years ago with boutique studios, right? If you want to call it that, right? The kind of the boutique fitness. And again, people looking for that personalization. I think the smaller facilities that survive this are in a much better position than even the big box gyms, because just throwing money at something doesn't always make it work. And to be nimble enough to adjust to how technology is enhancing the user experience is really what I think some of the smaller facilities and mid-range facilities are going to be equipped to do. The big box gyms are going to be looking to partner with larger companies like Apple and Peloton and other companies like that, kind of scrambling to try and stay relevant. And I think they're having a very hard time doing that because they've only been doing one thing for the last 40 years in the gym business, and that was the only way that they knew how to make money.
Exactly, and that, if they don't embrace change, it would be bad also, I think, for the consumers, because imagine, okay, somebody who wants to do a hybrid model of training would need to have separate, provider for the gym for the physical classes, and then a separate for digital workouts. So that would actually limit, because the information and his routine and everything would be separate between those two environments. So it would be a loss for him. So if there was maybe a solution that would be hybrid, working both seamlessly, ideally from one provider, that would be a better fit for end users.
Right.
Would you
And
agree?
I agree. The hybrid model, really, in education, right? A hybrid model has worked, right? College students had to go to class online when they couldn't go to a physical class any longer, right? But they're going to return to the classroom, and many of them who have labs and take the sciences know that they have to still go and do the labs and do the sciences. So they're built in that hybrid model. The fitness industry is the same. And it's exploding in the opportunities that are there. But what I was sharing about the big box gyms is they didn't see this. They didn't believe this could happen. They didn't believe they were going to end up being out of business. And this shift has been happening, was happening prior to the pandemic, and they were just kind of strolling along. But those that are embracing it and those that are scrambling to kind of pivot now, which is a little bit late, they'll survive. But then we're still looking at, like I said, that exercise TV thing where they're just going to have Crunch tried to do it. If you guys are familiar with Crunch Fitness in the States, right? They tried to keep their classes and launch an app in the middle of this, and even engage their trainers and their educators and their staff across the board, and they didn't actually do a very good job at it. And they had the financial capabilities to do that. I don't think that they understood the balance of hybrid versus live, and then setting themselves up to move into that next model. Now they're kind of hanging on by a thread, and they'll probably come out of this because they at least made that attempt. So that's where I see some of the bigger box gyms have actually were nimble enough to do that, or they're seeing the trend and saying we need to change what we're doing. But it's a little late, and that's why I think I said the mid-range to small boutique, even personal trainers like I'm still an active personal trainer, and we're looking at how can we best really personalize and interact with people, and do this on their terms, right? They want to have choices, and they want to have good choices, and that's the big conglomerate for me. As all of my projects kind of come to a point and come to a head, it's about taking education for the trainers. It's about taking education for the consumer, and it's about bringing that all together, whether it be in an application, whether it be on a website, whether it be on demand, whether it be on an app on a television, right? We have so much, whether it be on a Peloton, right? We have so much access to so many things now, and our whole goal with our app is to find ways not necessarily to compete with all of the Apple and Pelotons, but to find a way to integrate with them to improve the industry and to give people those choices and those opportunities.
Yeah, that makes more sense. So, can you talk us a bit more about the educational aspect of the industry? I think you being a big advocate of education in the fitness industry. What role does it play? And apart from just the fact that it's going more digital, what are other ways that this is changing the industry?
Can you repeat a little bit? So you're talking about the industry going more digital in the education space?
No, so I'm asking, what is the educational aspect of the industry? What role does it play in terms of growth? I think that you mentioned, the example of, the big players that, have cash, but they don't have the skills to necessarily, or yet collected experience to build digital platforms at scale. What are other aspects of, education that are important in this industry?
Well, I think for every profession, whether it's physical therapists, occupational therapists, personal trainers, right, they have to do continuing education. And while I have my opinions about how our certification process in the States work, I think it's a very low bar. But we've been able to turn around, and we're working with teams of instructional designers, animators, graphic designers, to put courses together, which leads me to the other project. Is I'm working with the Parkinson's Foundation here, and we're doing a continuing education project for physical therapists to be able to get their credits and maintain their licensure. So we've had to put a whole team of developers and tech people together in order to deliver that content. And as you could imagine, the science and technology of that content, now everything from surgical and medical interventions to medication, to the exercise programming, is included in this to this 20 module and 6-chapter course, which we're finishing up. And so we have to bring the team of developers and technology experts together with the content experts in order to improve and help the industry grow, help their practices grow, and to be able to serve the people that have the needs for their services.
So that sounds like the educational job is not so much about the content itself as it used to be, but it's also about the format in this content is presented and the digital aspect of delivering the content.
Yes, that's the big part of it. And now we especially know how people learn. We know more about their attention spans than ever with apps and other interactive materials. And so, each slide and each lesson, needs to be able to keep the people's attention, provide them the information that they need, follow up on it with knowledge checks and quizzes, right? So that they retain the information, that you're not just sitting there, think about, like we talked about, how many times have you watched a PowerPoint and a presenter and they're just clicking through and putting their laser pointer on it, and you're just, you start glossing over a little bit, right? You start sitting back in your seat and going, okay, and you start, you get distracted. People are distracted. So making sure that the way we deliver the content is an extremely important aspect of the learning process and the retention process.
In which sense? In which way does it affect the retention?
Well, for them to actually learn the material and be able to apply it, right? Whenever you want to teach something, you want application, right? You want to be able to use it. You want to take it into a real world setting, use it with your patients, use it with your clients, right? Use it with your membership. So when you have those abilities set in place and those interactivities built in place, and you understand how people are learning, then you can take that so they can take it and apply it, and all tides rise then, right? Everyone in the industry, anyone taking those courses benefits from that, all the way down to the patient, to the client, to the member, right? So if you're improving yourself with education, right, you're doing your continuing education and you're learning about how to deal with a specific population or a specific type of workout or a specific assessment that'll give you more information, you want to be able to use it, not just sit there and go, great, I got my credits, right? So that's how we've been building these courses out.
So you believe that once that the knowledge is effectively taken by the people who attended the course or the program, and they see benefits, they will return, and you're going to have more lasting business.
Absolutely, right. It creates retention. The better educated trainers, even managers, front people, your technology people, if they're all working towards that goal, you're going to see a higher retention. We talked about like that personalization, right? That's what it comes down to. Remember, people always remember how you made them feel, right? So if they feel like, hey, I got the best trainer, or I got the best physical therapist, or I had the best group exercise class, it was appropriate for me, it was geared towards me, it spoke my language. That means that the person who took that education before did their job. That means those of us that are creating the content or building the educational model with that content did our job, and it enhances everyone in the industry across the board.
Great. And you mentioned about one example of this big chain of gyms where they weren't particularly successful. Can you share with us a success story from the industry of adopting the change and growing?
Well, right now, I think that the success story. Well, I could use the karate school. It's at Competitive Edge Karate in Richmond, Virginia, right? We had to shift from just a live martial arts program and kickboxing program to, how are we retaining these people? And he had limited technology. He runs the school by himself. Right. So we had to find a way to automate things. We had to find ways to actually get him comfortable using, video learning and live teaching, how to enhance and utilize his email list, right, and his contact list. So even just small shifts like that are personalized, right? He got more involved in his social media and listing his schedule. And that was a big part of it, even in those small shifts. So that's a success story. I think anybody that's still functioning right now is a success story. It means that they adapted and that they pivoted, they adapted, and they're shifting with this change and adopting this change. So to me, that's a success story, right? The Autism Fitness program, that's a success story. We could have ended up drying up and throw our hands up and said, what are we going to do? How are we going to teach this? I have a 2-day course that I've been teaching, for 10 years now, and it's actually officially 4 years anniversary on the 2-day course. But Eric was teaching live workshops prior to that. Now what do I do? But we had the team of people around us, and we were able to integrate those things. So anybody that's come out of this, I feel, is a success story. Anybody that's adapting and trying to get into the technology space or adopt that existing technology that's out there right now, and those of us that are building new technology to enhance that. And I see we have a question here about technology and wearables, and so if you want to digress to the question now, and I'll take that.
Let's leave it for later, maybe.
Okay.
We'll have a Q&A session at the end.
Okay. I just didn't want to think we were ignoring them.
No. Don't worry. We're going to answer all the questions at the end. So, what is different? Between the people that endured and succeeded through those changes and those who didn't. Are they maybe more tech savvy? They have more digital background. What do you think? What does it take to make it?
Yeah, I think what happened is, and those that have come out the other side right now, or at least where we're at, because we're not completely out, they were early adopters. They were seeing the writing on the wall as it was happening, or even before that. Like for us, we already had some version of an online digital access platform, right, with a learning management system. So we had already been doing that for 4 years. So we were already set up then to have to make that shift. And those that didn't, I think, are the ones that where the success disappeared, right? They fell off the face of the earth. They were stuck in their way of thinking. They were stuck in their model. They were stuck in thinking this could never happen to us, right? Think about the size of the gym industry just in the United States alone, right? So they didn't think this could happen to us. And so how did those people prepare for success? I think they were already early adopters. I think they were already ahead of that. And then
before the pandemic hit, yes?
I'm sorry?
Before the pandemic started, they were already early adopters to some extent of technology, or they were early adopters when they spotted the change.
Yes, to some extent, they were already early adopters. And that helped a tremendous amount. I think the other thing was we saw a lot of opportunists that all of a sudden you saw all these platforms jumping up and all these people were, this is the way to do it and this is the way to teach it and that's the way, and this use this system and that system. And we saw, we saw a flood in the marketplace of opportunists saying, use our system, use our platform. And in some cases they were really good, and they made a difference. But we started seeing, like, something that happens a lot in the industry is you see all of these canned marketing programs, right? Get 20 clients today, right? This was get online and get digital now, right? In the middle of this. And I think that was, some of it was a little bit too late. But those that saw it early, and I know that there were other technologies that were being used completely differently that then adopted the fitness industry and said, hey, we can convert our systems to help you. And I think some of those were very successful as well. They were also someone who made a shift and a pivot from what their initial a business model was and their initial market was, right? They shifted to that and said, hey, there's a crash happening in the fitness industry. Our platform can be adopted and can be adapted, and we can help a lot of these people in this situation. And it gave them a kind of a turnkey operation to stay relevant, to stay online, and to adapt that pivot and now that shift.
Mm-hmm. And embracing technology is a challenge by itself. Yeah, technology is complex, a lot of tech stacks, and it's always risky. You don't have knowledge. What would be your advice to people who want to seriously invest in tech? Where would you advise them to start?
Build a plan. Build a plan. Decide what it is you want to do, who you want to reach, what the outcome is. Right? Always have the plan. And then find the right people. We've gone through, on all of our projects, we have gone through more programmers, IT, developers, graphic designers, coders, right? We had to go through the weeds to get to the right people. And build your team around you. Make sure that you have a singular message. Make sure that you have a singular goal, right? If it's like, again, and I'm just going to lean to our app a little bit. Our goal is to be able to take the expertise that my team has, both in running our businesses and our passion for being personal trainers and educators in that space, right? For other trainers, and saying, how do we take what's here and put it into a digital format so we can best serve and help people, right? And I think that's what it comes down to, is that goal needs to be about reaching the people, and truly understanding what your motivation is for that, and then taking the time. There's still plenty of time right now. We are just at the beginning of this, right? So if you're like, oh my God, I have an idea for an app, but everything's happening right now, don't jump at the first chance. Before we landed with Neoteric, we interviewed at least 5 or 6 different companies, had 3 or 4 different developers that had laid out some databases and some algorithms for us, and it took us a very, very long time to find the right fit for what we wanted to do, who also took the time to understand, this is our specialty, this is your specialty, how do we make those languages fit? And I think if you don't rush the process, no, I'm not saying don't move now, right? You want to move on it now, because we're in that, we're still in that pre-explosive growth. We're still at the bottom of the curve right now. But make sure that you line all your ducks up, right? Set your plan in motion. Find the right people around you that understand what you do, and then find the people that know how to do it, and then make sure that you don't just rush into someone who goes, hey, I can build you an app for $25 and we could have it out tomorrow. We could have an MVP tomorrow. So it's taken us, we actually started working on this app that we're now working with you on 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we went from idea and, to iterations, to now screenshots, and to now we're into algorithms and artificial intelligence, and figuring out how we speak each other's language and to make it simple, right? UX UI is the key, right? The user experience and the user interface, right? People want to do things, they're comfortable with how they do things. So if you're thinking about that, think about how you use an app. Think about how the end user is going to use it. I think that's something that gets lost sometimes between programmers and the idea. So that's my biggest advice: is surround yourself with the right people and take your time doing it.
Thanks. I like what you said about, being honest about what are your capabilities and where you have gaps, and trying to find a partner that, fills up those gaps that you have. I like it.
I want to quote somebody who was a client of mine on that. One of my personal training clients was the CEO of Vitamin Water and Smart Water, right? Literally, like when I say, like from the beginning, when we had a water crisis here, he was driving around with his partner with cases of Smart Water in the back and going to all the delis around Queens, New York. And he shared one of the things that has stuck with me about the team and about growth, and how they went from driving around with water in the back of their car to selling to Coca-Cola for $4 billion, which I was kind of a privy insider to, but I also spoke to him a lot and spent time at his offices. And that was one of the things he said. He's like, I started off with a certain amount of people, but in order to gain the growth that I needed, at some point I had to let them know that I have to bring somebody in that has more qualifications, more information. It doesn't mean I don't value them. And he built a culture of that, right? So surrounding yourself with people, filling the gaps, as you said, and putting that right out front. And that was really the key, was having a strong culture internally and a strong bond internally, and not so you made that very clear that I'm not leaving somebody out, but in order for us to grow, we have to have the right people in the right places with the right skills. I said early on in our project, I'm the COO of that project, but at some point, we had to go outside and say, who's going to be our CFO, who's going to be our COO when we reach a certain point, who's going to have a lot more experience and knowledge in how the marketplace works, and where do we still all fit in with our specialties. And the three of us that are on the initial team said, okay, this is my role, this is your role, that's your role. Now we're all trainers and we all do programming, but so we all are part of that. But what are our strengths and what are our weaknesses, and where do we need to fill in, and who are the right people for that? And that's what we've been doing as we're now going to we're at early stage where we're pitching for development cash, and and already working with you. And that was the key. And you guys helped us to identify some of those gaps. You guys helped us to see, more than just linearly of how we're going, but the big picture of things once we started to see things, laid out and storyboarded and organized. So that's a really, really big key, is filling the gaps with the right people, and not letting your ego get in the way of that, right? I want to see it's true. It's true. We all want to be the boss, and we all want to be in charge, and we all want to think that our ideas are the best, but that's not always the case. So you have to be willing to allow people into your inner circle, and trust them. Of course, you also have to vet them before they get in there.
Of course, no, but it's really nice advice. Appreciated. Okay, so maybe to wrap up, a bit more about the tech trends from the customer, from the user's perspective. What are the major trends? What is it that you observe that now people who do fitness activities they want from technology?
Well, I think what they want from technology is something that really is personalized, and most of this stuff falls short. We have a lot of gamification, right, in our apps. We have a lot of already built workouts, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's right for my next door neighbor or my dad, or for you. In fact, I think that some of the people in your company are actually working within our case studies to help us develop this. So we're working with a very different demographic, right, across the board. So we're working with many, many different user types, from every age, from every gender, from every profession, right? Because you're going to deal with, like, my dad's a retiree and he's in his late 70s, almost 80, right? So if I'm going to personalize something, it has to take into account, I need more data. I need more information. And, there's so much data pooling going on right now. There's so much integration of information that the right questions get asked, the right information gets provided, the right feedback goes to the user has a great experience, and it's a simple application to use, right? It's very intuitive. Oh, this is my calendar, this is my workout for the day, okay, here's how I log this. If it, we're actually building where they don't have to log except a very small amount of information, right? We're taking a lot of that information that they would normally need to do manually away from them to make the experience better, right? And then to see that they actually have change, that they have growth, that they're actually benefiting from this, right? So no matter what kind of application, whether it's in the fitness industry or others, are you meeting that goal, right? What was the problem? What was the problem I solved? And did the end user get the benefits that they were looking for, right? Did they get what was promised? And so I think that's a big part of the user experience, or those three things, right? Like I said, UX, UI, right? User experience, user interface, and did it actually do what you promised it was going to do? Then a step beyond that is, how are you dealing with the technological side of that from a customer service standpoint, right? We're always going to have the e-commerce version of problems, right? Oh, my credit card didn't go through, or it got charged twice accidentally, or right, or my Apple Wallet didn't integrate properly. We're going to have some technological customer service problems, so we have to have a team prepared to handle that. And I'm a big I want to talk to a person, whether it's a live chat, whether it's a phone call. I like to talk on the phone. That's because I'm a little old school at 55, but and then of course there's also going to be the technological, the fitness side of that, right? Someone is having a problem with their workout, right? Someone's having a problem with their rendering, someone's having a problem logging in, right? So all of the customer service aspects need to be be built into your plan as well, so that the user experience, right, that user gets everything they expect. I have one game that I play, and they are the worst at customer service. They always have these canned responses. They never do the right thing. And honestly, as much as I love the game because it happens to be from one of my favorite television shows, and I'm a sci-fi nerd, I'm just fed up, and I don't want to deal with it anymore. I won't spend $1 on it. I won't integrate. I'm playing less and less. It's gotten to the point where dealing with customer service or a small problem that I have in game it takes the fun away from it. And I think if you start realizing that you don't want to take the fun away from whatever your app is, right? You don't want people to have that negative experience, and you want to be accessible from that customer service standpoint. And I think that makes the difference, right? Sometimes we know there's going to be bugs, there's going to be issues. There's we're dealing with technology. It's not perfect. Things do happen, but if you prepare your business and your team appropriately, and you teach them how to deal with those problems and how to talk to a customer properly, that takes the retention of your app left. On every aspect, they have a good experience.
Here you have 3 advices from David Bluman about building the app. Is think about personalization, think about great interface that is seamless for users, and also don't forget about customer service, because if you launch the platform, you'll have people calling, writing, and being angry or cannot find features. So it's super important, I think, often overlooked. Great. Okay, so thanks a lot for this part of the session. So now shortly we'll move to a questions and answer session. So to all participants, please post your questions to the chat on the right side. We already have 3 questions. So just give you 1 minute to put up more questions if you have. And in the meantime, I'll tell you, as David was suggesting, it's very important how you start the technology project, that you make a firm plan, that you know what you want to build. So we get a special offer for all the participants of today's webinar. At Neoteric, we have something which we call a design sprint, and this is basically a 1-week series of sessions where we take an initial idea, build some initial mockups, and we actually validate it with real users to see if to try to validate the project and see if there is good fit in the market, if the users demand such services. And the special deal is that we are putting a 50% off for this particular design sprint session for those of you who will let us know that their interest until the end of this month. So 50% off on the design sprint, and then you can reach us directly if you're interested. Okay, so let's move to the questions. So we have 3 questions. The first question is from Felipe, and so with new fitness trackers coming to the market, like Mi Watch and other cheap fit bands, there is a big chance more and more mobile apps will pop up. So we will have plethora of them, and there is a question if, David, you see a need for one app that would control all of those devices, aggregate all the fitness information, and give a holistic view of the results, regardless of the technology that the person is using.
That's a really interesting question, because this is exactly what's happening in the medical industry right now. And the data that's in the medical industry is really a key to getting an overall view of that patient. And this is actually something that we were talking about, as I mentioned earlier, in our app, was being able to integrate and to create those strategic partnerships. Yes, where all of that data is housed is a very different perspective, because right now Google is trying to amalgamate several different hospital groups so that they have control of all that data. That's also why they bought Fitbit. They're buying all this stuff up because they're trying to aggregate the data into one place and be the record keeper. It's very hard to do that in the fitness industry, but there are some areas where where data sharing plans through different platforms and different wearables and different companies are starting to integrate together and form partnerships. So it's kind of a data clearinghouse. And so, yeah, I think it's very important because people interact with so many different apps, and it could be a different wearable, it could be a different fitness app, it could be like I said, it could be a Peloton, it could be a Fitbit. We're going to get usable data that's going to enhance the user in our platform as well. And it's also going to, once used and appropriately, like let's just say Peloton gets the data from your app or my app, it can definitely help to inform the user on that platform as well, and the programming that takes place on that platform. So right now, the only way to do that is to integrate through the different, like I said, clearinghouses of data, and building the strategic partnerships where you can do that. One of the things we're doing is we are going to be using HIPAA compliant servers. That's the medically protected, right? So we have the highest encryption and the highest amount of information protection that we possibly can provide our users. So when we do get that data, we want to make sure that none of that is leaking and that we're applying it appropriately. So yeah, the 360 review, that's a great way to term that. We do need a 360 review, particularly in fitness and medical fitness, right? Because that's also a growing market right now.
And what do you think would be the most probable way to get there? So do you think that there'll be, some industry association or regulatory body who will say, okay, these are the standards for distributing fitness information between the apps, like in the banking industry, where you have
right.
Or do you think rather there's going to be like one company who will have, this great app, and other hardware players, they'll just integrate, but, playing according to the rules of the application owner?
I think it's going to be the rules of the application owner. It's going to be how the data is protected, and building the strategic partnership. Inter app, and like I said, in this case, for those of you that know a little bit more about technology in the back end, how we integrate several different technology systems on the web they use something called an API. In this case, it would have to be a much more secure version of that. But basically, that allows one system to talk to another system and to share data. So I think what's going to happen is at some point there's never going to be one uniformed place that I think for the data, but I think where you see something like I was talking about, Google's buying up all of those fitness applications and all of these other, and creating all these strategic partnerships so they can have more data on you and me and everyone else. So I think we're going to see one large clearinghouse, but it's also going to be up to the individual app designers and companies to say, hey, let's put our stuff together. Everybody benefits, and it's going to take that mindset to do that. But right now, like I said, like the medical industry, there's no one centralized bank, so to speak, of that data. So it's going to be how we create our partnerships and integrate with each other, and that's something we're very, very, we're very proactive on that, and we believe that it's really important. And it kind of shifts away from that whole I'm in competition with you, right? The more people we can help in the fitness industry, the healthier population we have. Like I said, rising tides, all boats go up, right? So that's how we're approaching it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for showing us your perspective. Okay, so the next question. Hello, everyone. What do you think about super app contains every kind of fitness activities within? I think
right.
a big similar topic, but then.
So let's define every kind of fitness activity, right? And I'll kind of divide it into a couple of groups, right? We have our weightlifting, we have our group exercise, we have small group, we have tons of different tools, we have so many different variables in programming and activities. So what would define all fitness activities? Right? I could take a walk and, that's an activity that's appropriate for my fitness. I could take a bike ride, right? That's appropriate. I could do a Peloton. So one super app, I mean, how do you specialize then? How do you separate yourself in the marketplace? And how do you not water down that whole entire, app? Now, I'm not saying that, at some point, like I said, this integration with multiple apps and multiple technologies and different classes and different experts, I think that we're going to see that. That's a tall order, like, because using the word every kind of activity is quite a lot. But I would start with a single activity or a couple of different activities that you feel are most beneficial for the user. And then, yes, we actually already have version 2s and version 3s of our app, on our development table, right? We know, though, first we're going to start off with one particular thing we're going to focus on, do that well, and then we can apply it to the next activity and the next activity, the next integration. So over time, I think we'll expand into more things, but I don't think, I don't want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none.
Well, that makes sense. It's also in line with our experience, building digital products at Neoterix, that it's much better to, trim down your initial idea to, some core functionalities that will appeal to users, not all the users, not around all the globe, not all, sport activities, but pick something where you can bring value that is not there in the market, appeal to the users, get the initial traction, get the users, and then you can start building on top of it, on top of the initial success. It's much easier to build extra features to the app that already has, happy paying users. And I think that the last question is, what to do with investors who would like to get everything at once.
Wait, so they want us to add features. They want you to add the features all at one time. So now we're dealing with the playing with other people's money, right? That's what we're doing here, and they are trying to control the development process from the investor standpoint. And what I would say to them is, like I said, let us master one thing, let us get our MVP out, let us get actual users and feedback, Instead of trying to do all things at one time, the best way for me to protect your money is to do the step by step, and then thereby ensuring that your investment is being used for what it was supposed to be used for, and that you're getting a return on that investment, right? And I get it. Everybody wants to rush to market, but there's still plenty of time here. We're not at that critical mass in business yet, right? We haven't hit that in this amalgamation of the industries, right? We're talking about fitness industry tech. We're talking about artificial intelligence, right? We're talking about the app and technology market and the Internet of Things, right? Right now, we have a huge convergence, but we have to make sure that we build it step by step. You got to go step by step, and you got to tell your investors that is the best way to protect their investment. Okay. Otherwise, we're just throwing paint on the wall and making a Jackson Pollock. If everybody gets that reference, he's the guy that splashed paint on the wall, and that was and they sold for millions of dollars, but that's not really the best way to file this approach. And the one thing we did with Neoteric was very much that we talked about our big picture and our goals and all of the features that we want, and then we said, let's set the foundation for that, make sure it works, and like Derek said, then we can grow into that next piece and the next piece and that next piece, and already have people using it, and then they have more and more benefits, and we have longer retention, right? Thereby also extending the investor's return on investment.
So once again, education proves to be helpful, but this time education applied on investors. Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for today's session. I hope that you find it interesting and fruitful. Thank you, David. Thank you, all listeners. And if you have any comments or questions, just shoot us a message. It was really great time talking.
Well, I've taught around the world, and I've told everybody, and this stands to this day. If you have a question, I'm accessible, right? We talked about customer service. I still integrate with students of mine from 15, 20 years ago, still talk with them, still integrate with them, still take questions, still communicate. So, and I'm available to all of you as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.